what I have found over the years is I actually can combine high-tech pieces of equipment that is now affordable to the average person to get therapies with old school Chinese medicine, holistic health modalities to help people achieve better brain health faster.
You just heard Anna Marie Frank talking about Happy Whole You and the tools they have to help you become healthy. Anna Marie is a doctor of traditional naturopathy. She's a brain health professional, ICF certified coach, certified master herbalist, and lover of life. She is also an author, speaker, employee wellness consultant, and mindset well-being coach. Anna Marie is also the formulator of her own brain nutraceutical line, which includes Happy You, Calm You, and Bright You. Her mission is to end mental health stigmas and help all people upgrade their brains, biology, and energy field through lifestyle choices while rewiring their neuro pathways using holistic modalities. In today's show, we discuss the importance of brain health. Later in the show, we talk about Anna's supplement line, and be sure to stay tuned to hear the surprising reason why her psychiatrist changed her life. This was a special episode for me because I love the topic of health and wellness and life longevity. Anna has a lot of information in those areas, and so it was interesting to see her perspective. This episode was meant to be educational, informational, and entertaining. It should not be construed as medical advice, and you need to consult your own medical professionals before applying any of the concepts discussed in this episode.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
And welcome to the show today. My name is John Duffield, and I am here today with my co-host, Kyle Jones, our local attorney. Before we get into the show today, I would like to encourage our followers to listen to last week's episode. We had back in the studio Danny Hill. That's got to be a great podcast because Danny Hill's a stinking comedian.
He's a character.
He is so funny, and I get, I'm fortunate enough I get to be around him all the time or frequent enough, and he just makes me giggle. He's just one of those people. So anyways, catch that and hear all the exciting news that he's been up to. Today we have in our studio Anna Marie Frank, owner of Happy Whole You. Anna, thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You know what? I'm excited. I have to tell you, I love this topic. I know Kyle loves this topic, and so we're kind of anxious to dig into it. So before we get too far, tell me this. I like to do it this way. Tell me the name of your business, where it's located, and then give me that little shameless kind of plug, and then we'll kind of get started into the podcast.
Yeah, Happy Whole You. Right now, we're located at 2611 F Street, downtown Bakersfield. However, next month we bought a building and we are expanding at 2001 G Street. So if you've gone on G Street right next to Happy Jack's, you've probably seen our logo and then the beautiful mural of the woman with butterflies in front of her face.
Okay.
So go
Who painted that mural for you?
Her name's Nilu. She's Bakersfield and lives down south. She kind of does a remote. And then there was actually another gal, JC, there's another mural on the side of the building, and she works for the post office.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations buying that building. That's exciting stuff, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, and welcome to debt, right? And so that,
there's good debt. There's good debt.
Yeah, one of my old, I was a partner in a CPA firm with a guy by the name of Rick Williams, and I love Rick, and he said, debt motivates, debt creates good character, or maybe not, right? And so you got to figure it out if you're that right person. So tell me this, how did you get started in tell us about the business, and then tell me how you got started in it.
Well, Happy Whole You has really evolved as I've evolved. I had to heal my own brain after having some issues with it for many, many years. And I set forth on a journey to heal myself when Western medicine, it just didn't work for me, right? It works for some people, it didn't work for me. And what I have found over the years is I actually can combine high-tech pieces of equipment that is now affordable to the average person to get therapies with old school Chinese medicine, holistic health modalities to help people achieve better brain health faster. So we really focus on increasing brain function, decreasing body inflammation. And I just do that because I had to do it for myself first.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I was looking at your website and it said you're a doctor of traditional, naturopathy as opposed to that, typical MD that we see. Draw that distinction for us a little bit better, if you would.
Yeah. And, a lot of people in America are not aware that, 100 years ago, really about 100 years ago, 110 years ago, when you would go to school, like I'm from Michigan, so Michigan State University, our universities used to be called colleges. And when you would produce an MD, a doctor, they would be a plant medicine doctor. They would use Native American practices and Eastern European practices to help people with their health. And then at the turn of the century, there was the Rockefellers and the Carnegies. So there's some history in America where they kind of simultaneously went to these colleges and started to mainstream medicine to where allopathic medicine was then born. And so, we could use synthetic drugs, we could use patents, and so there's a lot of money around that. I believe that there's really good in both, but I think we shouldn't be all one-sided, which is what I did on my healing journey. Is I just went the allopathic route because that's what I was taught, that's what I thought I was supposed to do, and unfortunately, 15 minutes with a doctor and 3 medications later, I became worse and I kept getting sicker and sicker. And so I had to figure it out. We're in charge of our own health. And I think we forget that here in the States.
Yeah, sure. So I listened to another podcast and the guy always says we have to participate in our own recovery, right? And so, and I say that to clients all the time about whether it's their health or maybe it's some legal issue or a divorce issue, right? You really have to run your own life and you can get advisors that participate in that, but we're really responsible for it. So, yeah. So how long was that journey for you when you decided to go kind of heal your own brain and then make that transition into what you're doing today?
Well, started when I was actually in high school, when I started realizing I didn't feel right, but I didn't really tell anyone because I was an athlete. I was very successful. You would look at my life and think, wow, I'd want to be like her.
Sure.
And I kept thinking, I was really ashamed of how I was feeling because I should be thankful for my life and where I'm at and all that. And then into college, still struggled with that. It wasn't until I graduated college and went off and started working a job where I really hit rock bottom. So I was around 22. That's about when I went and saw a doctor for the first time. And, the interesting thing about mental health is there's a lot around it. The brain is the only organ in the body that a doctor will prescribe or give medication to when they've never scanned or looked at it. They would never put you on heart medication or any other medications without doing diagnostic testing. So that's really interesting around the brain. And I found that interesting as I'm, was learning more about the brain. Yeah. So going on those meds around 22, 23 years old, a couple of years of really feeling bad. And then I just started waking up and I started to just do a little bit every day of different things to heal myself.
Waking up, meaning realizing that wasn't working for you, right?
Right. Because I kept going back to the doctor to say, hey, this medication isn't working. Can you give me something else? Like I kept looking outside of myself for somebody else to fix me. And so, I was kind of in a rat race there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so then I started doing little things and then, I struggled with postpartum depression after having my first child, learned a lot there to take care of my mental health and physical health. And then didn't have it as much with my second child. And then really, I would say around 30 is when I started to really get my mind right? Like you can exercise and eat a bunch of salads and do all that, but if your brain isn't right, it doesn't matter. You need to have your mindset really dialed in. So I started that at, 10 years ago. And then along the last 10 years, the last decade, I started Happy Whole You. It started as an online business to help people. And then now we have, brick and mortars.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know what, listening to you, and I think you're absolutely right. And kind of a point that I would like to make is that when you feel bad or you feel really, really down, but then you're supposed to be working on you at the same time, right? And so how do you find that ambition or that motivation to go, deal with that problem when you don't feel at that normal level, right? I mean, you're down for whatever reason, don't have the energy, or you're lethargic, or mentally you're just not in a good spot. Makes it really, really difficult to do that. And so it's easy to want to go to typical physician and have them, give you a pill that's supposed to fix everything as opposed to go do it the long way, right?
A pill for every ill.
Right.
Well, so we in this space of wellness and healthy eating, diet, exercise, all that, we've had, do you know Nicole Giamara?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's wonderful. We've had her on twice. Sure. We've had Dr. Beatty on. We've had numerous people in this kind of field. And one of the things that always comes up during the podcast, which I think about, is what your business provides, and what I would think that your mission statement would be. Is that a sustainable model for 375 million people in this country? Or do we still need that easy kind of Western medicine where you go to Kaiser and they write you a med and at least get you? I mean, is there a balance? Do you see that as something that's sustainable with a large group of people? Or is it meant for people who are just maybe blessed socioeconomically or have time on their hand because maybe they have a job that leads them to have free time, or a spouse that takes care of the income? What are your thoughts on kind of the availability of this type of approach?
I mean, it can be widely available. It's just not what our country really wants. I mean, if you think about it, think of every new fast food restaurant you see, and then an urgent care is right around the corner. So it's just interesting. Why is homeopathy and holistic health, why is that not covered under insurance? That doesn't make sense at all. So the other thing is that we're programmed to think that if our insurance doesn't cover it, then people are like, oh, well, my insurance doesn't cover it, so I can't afford it. And I think we all need to start talking to our insurance companies and being like, hey, this should be covered, or not expect it to be covered. I mean, a family of four, my family, a minimum crappy care, I guess you would say, is $1,500 to $1,800 a month.
Whether you use it or not.
Whether you use it or not.
Right.
Yeah. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What if I could take $1,800 a month and spend it on nutrition, massage, different therapies, going to other countries to get treatments that aren't allowed in the United States? What if I could use that money for that and then just get catastrophic insurance? Why isn't that an option in our country?
It was before Obamacare.
Obamacare, yeah, changed it all.
That's the approach I took. I had basic catastrophic, and I had a HSA account that I'd fund, and I would use that for all my supplements and my osteopath I want to go see. And so my Dr. Beatty, who I use as my primary, he'll bill insurance for blood work and stuff, but the consultations and treatment, you pay basically cash for. And so, but with Obamacare, I have what's basically catastrophic. And it's not under Obamacare, but what that's done to the healthcare system.
Took it away.
I have the bronze plan, and with 5 of us, it's still $13 a month. And that's just basic, like they don't even cover anything until we're $7,000 out of pocket. Right. And, it's just, I feel like I'm pissing that money away.
Yeah. You think the insurance companies would want true wellness, right? So then they're not having to spend that money on claims. But obviously the pharmaceutical companies have better lobbies or better relationships with the insurance companies than we do. Yeah. That's what it comes down to.
No, that's true. And you said, is this sustainable, right? Like, is this something that should be readily available to everyone? Yes. Could it be? I believe so. But here's the thing about mental health, because I think a lot of this comes back to mental health. A family doctor, and one can correct me if I'm wrong, but are not supposed to diagnose depression, anxiety, any mental health disorder without waiving out any foundational health issues. Does that make sense? So like when we look at mental health, there is a reason people are not mentally well. And a lot of times it comes back to their foundations of health and what's going on with them. Environment, yes, that plays a huge role. Environment plays a huge role in all of our health. But when we look at foundations, I mean, we have kids walking around with fatty liver disease, and this disease we never saw unless you were like a 55-year-old alcoholic, right? And now there's kids with fat. I mean, I scan them, I see it. It's like, it's incredible. And it goes back to their diet and what they're eating. So then if we back up, you go to the school systems, and then you look at the schools and what's allowed for our quote unquote free lunches. There's a lot of schools in Bakersfield that have free and reduced lunch. And so
and breakfast now.
And breakfast and snack.
And dinner.
And like all of it, right? I'm not saying that, okay, that shouldn't be, but why is 51% or something like that, quote unquote, whole grain? Why is dairy subsidized? Why is sugar subsidized? Why is wheat subsidized? Why are fruits and vegetables not subsidized?
Lean meat, right? Healthy.
Right.
Animal protein.
Grass-fed, like all the things. So I think more and more people are waking up to holistic health and to frequency therapy, which is therapies that I provide for people, your mental health, all of that. And I think people are starting to wake up to that, because they're not feeling well with what's going on with their line of healthcare and what they're getting. And we shouldn't even call it healthcare. And then I think
I think Dr. Beatty calls it disease care.
It is dis-ease. It's dis-ease care.
Dis-ease. For sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I was calling because we had to change insurance. We're going to have to change insurance plans. And I thought it was funny. The lady on the phone tells me, well, preventative care is 100% covered on this policy. I'm like, preventative care? You mean early detection? There's no preventative care. Like, we need to quit saying it's preventative care. That's false advertising. This is early detection. Preventative care is not happening in our healthcare system at all.
Preventative care would be dieting correctly and exercising and getting a health treatment or whatever the case may be.
Preventative care would be your insurance company sending you fruits and vegetables every month for $20 and
gym membership.
Gym membership. Yeah. But you have to show up and use it.
Clean water.
I have a lot of clients. They're like, I'm like, do you exercise? They're like, oh, I have a gym membership. I'm like, do you exercise? Right?
Do you go to the gym?
Do you go? Right. So yeah, anyways.
Is your business model a membership based? I mean, get into that now. You talked about gym membership. Is it something that you become a member of Happy Whole You? Do you pay a la carte? Is it something that is covered by insurance? How does that work?
So it's all of the above. We can take some, if you put away pre-tax dollars for uncovered medical, we have a form that your doctor can fill out to refer you to us. And so your, health savings account, we can take that if you're referred. So we do take that. We do have memberships. A lot of times what will happen is clients will come in and they'll just be like, oh, I just want to try these things, right? Like, they're curious, which is fun. And so we just encourage them, try all the fun things and see how you feel. And then I have a large portion of people come and they sit down, and my whole process with someone is 2 hours. So we do a full 2-hour intake. From that intake, figure out what's going on with them from a foundational health standpoint. And then I make recommendations for them. This is what you could pick up at the store or the grocery store. These are some things and therapies I'd love for you to do at home. These are therapies we can recommend for you here. And then these are other practitioners in town or, virtual or whatever that could also help you and you could benefit from. So it's not linear. Like, every client I see is different in their needs. And I should back up and say, when I work with people, I believe that every physical ailment that we have and that we're experiencing has manifested from an emotional blockage that we've stored in our body over time, and it's weakened tissue. So this can be your own stuff or something from lineage. So not only do I work with the physical aspect of the human body, but I also work in the mental aspect, emotional. I also work with the energetics. So if you go inside every single cell till you can't go any further, the only thing that's left is energy. So to not address the energetics of one's being, we're missing a whole space of healing. And the way I got into frequency therapy is what we could call it simply, is I started using that therapy to start to heal myself. And I started to travel to get therapy, to get this therapy. And it really, really helped me a lot.
What is frequency therapy for those who are unaware of the term? Yeah,
so like biofeedback, maybe a better term for some people to understand. But ultimately, everything on planet Earth, everything in our body vibrates at a very specific frequency that can be identified. The equipment I use to evaluate people, one piece of that equipment, it's technology that we use to evaluate astronauts in outer space. How in the world do we know what an astronaut's BP is, how they're doing biologically from outer space back to Earth, right? How does your cell phone work? Through frequency. You have this thing that's not attached to anything, and you can literally call someone around the world. So when I work with people and they're like, how does this work? How does this, this is crazy. This knows all this information and it's like really accurate. It's like, do you believe in your cell phone? That's frequencies.
No.
Frequencies, radio waves. Yeah. So
I don't understand it is the point, right?
Do we have to really understand it, or do we just need to know we feel better? Right. So that's the other thing is, sure. I think some people make health more complicated and they're trying to figure out all the things. It's like, listen, just grab an apple, pick it up, start eating it. If you feel tired, stand up, walk around the room for 5 minutes. We need to quit overthinking things like, oh, how many calories am I eating? Oh, the macros, the micros, and all that. Yeah, I mean, there's a time and space for all that. I was an athlete, I get that. But I think we need to make things less complicated and just be in action and just start doing.
On that line, how do you tell or advise people to, or help them to listen to your body. I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is not overthink things. Just if you're thirsty, drink something. If you're hungry, eat something. Obviously, hopefully the right thing.
Yeah.
But if you feel down, go outside and sit in the sun for 20 minutes. Or, how do you work with people to kind of get in tune with what their body's asking them to do?
Yeah, I wanted to ask it a different way, and that is that, so let's pretend I were going to become one of your patients, right? Mm-hmm. What's that process look like, start to finish?
Well, you come in, you sit with me. We do 2 hours of, fun. So the biggest thing with what we do is we want to educate, right? So, what you're saying in terms, Kyle, about, if you feel like you need sun, like go outside and get some sunshine, right? Like, so bringing awareness with the clients and educating them in a way of, you can do these things. You can do this handful of things for the next 30 days and you will feel better. It doesn't really cost you anything but just doing them. And how I approach people too is I like to use what's called the add-in method. And I actually have this thing called a 52-week add-in method. So anyone listening, you can just email us at info@happywholeyou and I'll send you a PDF. You can print it out. But ultimately, instead of telling people to stop doing this, stop doing that, I use the add-in. So it's like, okay, day 1 or week 1, we're just going to add in a big glass of water every morning when you wake up. Week 2, we're going to add in tapping these meridian points on your body that are specific to what your body needs from the evaluation. Week 3, you're going to add in eating an apple every day. Like, it's very we can go that easy and that slow, but it'll yield you, it's that compound effect, like very, very big results.
Sure.
So start to finish, there's never any finish, but ultimately I'll see clients, I'll make a recommendation. I have people that do 7-day, 5-day, 4-day programs. I have a lady right now who's doing a 21-day program at our location. And then after that, we'll see where she's at. And then from there, some people go on maintenance programs, and that's where the membership comes in. And we call our members and we're like, you need to show up for your appointment. Like we're that place that's like, take time for you. Like you need to take, an hour a month. That's not asking a whole lot.
Right. Jim should call us too for the record. Right. Just make sure.
The cool thing about the gym model, which I would love to replicate somehow, is to have a ton of income coming in and no one using the facilities that you provide.
I can't be a part of something like that.
Well, it'd be nice to have the cash flow, but you want to make a change, right?
Yeah.
And make a difference in it.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the, what I'm going to call kind of non-traditional things like the theta pod and red light bed and some of those other things that you use.
Yeah. So, we use a lot of theta therapy, and theta pod is literally this pod. We connect these CES units to your ears. They're FDA approved for like anxiety, depression, insomnia. Then you have this headset. So we have binaural beats going on, and then we overlay that with some regular music. And then you have a light therapy. So your eyes are closed. So you're literally going in this pod. The pod turns while you're in it. And so your brain is being lit up like it's the 4th of July. It's very, very stimulated. And what's interesting, everybody's brain does something different when they're in the pod, but your brain starts to adjust and it actually forces you in the theta state. The theta state is a state of mind right before you fall asleep, right before you wake up. It's when you're most open to suggestion. It's when we can talk to your subconscious. And the really cool thing about the theta pod that we just actually added to it is we do this thing called inner voice analysis. So you talk into this special microphone for about 30 seconds and it goes through this program and it analyzes the frequencies coming off of your voice and it gives you your top 4 emotional blockages and the organ systems that are being impacted by those emotional blockages. And then there's like healing colors that are good for you to like visualize if you're meditating or just bringing into your life and things like that. But when you go in the pod, it actually formulates those binaural beats specifically for you and your brain and your body and what you need.
So you're able to see what's going on in me, for example, when I'm in the theta pod, yeah?
Yeah, I will. I mean, we're not seeing while you're in there. You're in there and you're in your own space.
Yeah, I know, but in my brain, though.
Yeah. So I'll go over, like, I'll tell clients, I'll be like, okay, so these are the top 4 things that are coming up. And we just have like a brief, quick discussion. And then it's for them to go in the pod and to work through whatever it is that they need to work through. The interesting thing is every single person has emotional blockages and things that they have suppressed consciously or not.
Sure.
And they start to impact your health over time. So, there's pretty generic things like your liver. If you have liver issues, you probably have issues with anger, right? If you have issues with your lungs, you probably have some unprocessed grief in your life that you've gone through. So kidneys have everything to do with fear. Bladder, there's some fear there as well. So it's really fascinating stuff. It's like
sounds fascinating.
My jam.
Yeah.
The infrared, you do the red light therapy. No, that's not something that's, it's gaining in popularity now.
Yeah.
But my understanding is this was something that has been around for 100 plus years and used widely, correct? Is that?
So much of this stuff has been around forever. It's just like hasn't been accessible to the average person. And like red light, yeah. So there's a difference between red light and infrared light. And a lot of people get those two confused. So I'll just kind of like separate those two. Red light you can see. So red light is visible to the naked eye. Infrared light is naked. You can't see it. And infrared light, there's like our medical grade sauna that we have is a full spectrum infrared light, far, mid, and near. And not all infrared light causes heat. So some people will come to our sauna and be like, oh, it got up to only 130 degrees and I want it to be warmer. And it's like, that's not what we're doing. The infrared light is actually light. It's healing rays that actually come from the sun. So it's mimicking that. But infrared light, your body actually absorbs that heat. So it's not just heating up the air around you and bouncing off your skin and causing you to sweat. Your body actually absorbs that heat, which when it absorbs that heat, it allows it to go into fat tissue, muscle tissue, to get rid of toxins and to decrease inflammation and to increase circulation. So that's our medical grade sauna. And then we also have the red light therapy bed, which is a full body. It's like a tanning bed, but it's all red light. We do have a panel of infrared light in the bed. So I always tell clients like this panel of lights is not broken. It's just you can't see it because it's infrared. And then we also have some blue light therapy in that bed. So when they go in there, they get head to toe. And then we always, anyone that comes to Happy Whole You, we always hook you up. So we use like this thing called a brain tap. So while you're in the full body red light bed, we give you this device that we program specific guided meditations. Like if you're going for weight loss or if you're going for just clarity or success or whatever. So we always try to add that brain element because the two main things we focus on is increasing brain function, decreasing body inflammation. And we do that by building foundations of health with people.
The red light is, I've listened to a few podcasts on that. Is that the one where men are actually using for
hair
testosterone replacement therapy to increase testosterone production?
Okay. So what red light does from a foundation standpoint is it increased mitochondria function. And your mitochondria, think of it as like the little battery in every single cell in your body. And so it's literally recharging that cell. So if you have better cellular function, needless to say, you're going to start helping with your hormones and everything else. So I'm actually in the middle of developing, it's going to be called Aroused You because I have my own line of supplements, but it's using...
I see John brain working over there.
You were the one asking about testosterone, buddy. So.
No, it's true, right? They use red light treatment to increase testosterone production.
Yeah. So, it's all how it's advertised to you, right? So it's pretty, I've got to sometimes come up with some like clever things, but like when I talk to people about building your foundations of health, that's not as sexy as like, hey, I'm going to help you increase your testosterone.
Right.
Right. So yeah. So, but there's a lot of things that need to be done from a foundational standpoint, and people they'll stop having, issues with ED and, the first thing with ED is actually brain fog. If you start having brain fog, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? So erectile dysfunction is going to happen when you have brain fog. And what does that foundational thing go to? It goes to your vascular system, which leads me into another therapy we do is we have this microvascular beamer chair that people sit in. It increases vasomotion, eliminates about 30% more of your metabolic waste, and it helps with the function of red blood cells. So as we age, what happens with our vascular system, if you think of like a small tree outside, I heard this, I don't know where I heard this, but I heard this and I was like, wow, that analogy is really cool. So when you see a very small tree blowing in the wind, it has like all these little branches and like the micro branches coming off them. And then if you look at a very large tree blowing in the wind, they have just like the big branches, right? You don't have all that fine, it's like your vascular system, right? All those little veins and arteries when you were little that were, like the side roads, they were all functioning well. And then as you get older, it's only like the main roads are open, your main vascular system, the highways, right? The main arteries, the
organs,
the main veins. Yeah.
Keep you alive, basically.
Yeah. So it's like, it's the vascular system is so important. And when we're not moving our body, when we're not eating well, when you're having too much sugar, and what sugar does to, the vascular system is very, very damaging. If you think of sugar, for those of you out there, issues with diabetes or not, but just eating too much sugar or carbohydrates, sugar is like little pieces of glass going through your veins and your arteries, and it's causing little scrapes along the way, and your body has to repair that. And so that's not a good thing. So yeah, our vascular system really takes it over the years.
We had, were you on the podcast we did with, butcher her name, but she was a therapist. She said the same thing. She started talking about erectile dysfunction. No, it was Dave Plivich was with me on that one. And she said it's like 90% of the time it's mental, not physical.
Yeah.
And that's kind of similar to what you were just kind of saying. So
yeah, it's interesting. When patients come in to see you, what's typically their biggest complaint?
They don't feel well. And they're not sure why.
Can they pinpoint it? That like, I don't feel well this?
Yeah.
Or they just know they just don't feel well?
Yeah, they can pinpoint. I mean, a lot of times they'll pinpoint it, but what's interesting is they'll share with me the physical symptoms, but then we go deeper. And then once they get a better understanding of what's going on within them, they're more able to stick with the plan, if you will, right? Like they feel like, I have a lot of clients that tell me like, I felt heard today. Like, thank you. I have a couple of clients that actually came from down south to see me, and it was this older gal. They were both in their 80s, and her husband, he has onset dementia. And she sent me like the sweetest message and just was like, thank you, because I felt like I was heard. I felt like you listened to me, and my husband felt like he was listened to. And so just that alone, the biochemistry that happens when somebody feels of value, they feel validated, they feel heard, that alone is going to help produce feel-good hormones. Sure. and going to help you. So, but yeah, it's an incredible process that I'm lucky I get to do with people.
Absolutely. I know this is way more complex than this, and listening to you for the last 30 minutes and all of the things that goes on. But if you were to sit and tell us to try to fix one thing, whether it was sleep, nutrition, or exercise, what is it if you had to pick one?
Honestly, I would say to fix your mindset, which is ultimately, instead of looking at everything that's not going well for you, look at the things that are going well for you and remind yourself that life is happening for you and not against you. You have to change your perspective of how you view the world and how you view yourself, I believe, first, and then you're better able to make better health decisions. I've helped people lose hundreds and thousands of pounds.
And there's hundreds and thousands, Anna Marie?
Yeah, I mean, like over the years, like 20 years in wellness. Sure. Because when I first started off in wellness, I would just tell people to exercise as if that was going to solve all of their issues. Right. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, okay, we got to do something about this nutrition thing. So then I'd be like, okay, you got to exercise, and then you have to do this nutrition plan. And then I was finding I could help people and they would lose weight. And then, 6 months, a year later, they're still not happy. Right? Happiness. That's why my company is called Happy Whole You. Happiness, being truly, authentically happy and at peace with yourself and at peace with the world around you. I think for me, that's the ultimate goal. But you can't be happy unless you're whole. And that wholeness is adding elements into your life that are healthy, but it's how you think. It's how you view things. So, I mean, I can tell people to eat a kale salad or drink a bunch of water, but like how you view that. Like if you think eating a salad every day is depriving you, you're not going to stick with it. If you feel that you have to go to the gym because you have to burn 200 calories and you have to work out, and that's your view, like, oh, I got to get up and go to the gym today, you're not going to stick with it. So it's changing how you think of things and how you view things, I think, is the number one most important thing people can start with.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And at the same time, I would say that if somebody is in that mindset where they're down, it's tough to have the motivation to be that all-star to then find the energy to go to the gym. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's a battle. It really honestly is.
I was going to say the mindset approach, that goes to more than I mean, that could be applied to anything in your life, your relationships, your business,
everything.
You know, if you're a young entrepreneur who wants to start a business, I mean, that having the right mindset going into it is going to make a huge difference. So I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
That's good. Tell us about your book. You've written a book called Stop Bullying Yourself. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So ultimately we have that voice inside our head that tells us a bunch of junk, right? And I believe that voice inside your head is ultimately not you. Who you are from a soul level, you are truly the one that's witnessing that voice. But you witnessing that voice, you're like the parent. You have to shut it up. You have to redirect it. You have to reteach it. You have to reprogram that voice. And so that's ultimately, I wrote this book. I actually started it as just a Word document. And I was writing just to my children because my daughter was 2 at the time when I wrote this book. And I just thought, man, like having her really changed me a lot. But I thought, gosh, if my kids struggle with depression like I have, I want them to know the tools and the things they can do to kind of, you know, get out of that or whatnot. And and I will say, I used to say, oh yeah, I have depression. And then I would say I had depression, but I don't think depression or anxiety or anything is anything we have. I think it's something we experience, and it's caused because of something more foundationally going on. So it should never really even be a diagnosis because it's just something, there's something deeper going on.
Do you work with teenage age group or children? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Or all ages.
As for you, it started early, right? You were a teenager when it started with you? Isn't that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah. And more teens, I mean, the suicide rate among teens, and I mean, there's a lot, right? Like we were talking before this, and just with COVID and the stress and what it does. And I think people forget, you know, the whole COVID pandemic and this whole fear and worry and anxiety, what that does is it ultimately activates the limbic system in the brain, the amygdala in the brain, that is ultimately like fight or flight. And what happens when you're
adrenaline, cortisol.
Yeah, right? Yeah, all that. And when it's going on for a long period of time, we forget that cuts you off from using your prefrontal cortex, right? Your executive functioning thinking of the brain. So here we have the whole world is living in this amygdala limbic system state of mind. And it's going on for 2.5 years or however long it is. And people are not using executive thinking function. And they're doing the best they can, right? Like you don't really realize that you're making these emotional decisions and that you're not making the best decisions possible because you're in that state. But that's where shifting your mindset, taking time to breathe and meditate, and taking a step back before you make a decision or before you say something can be very helpful. And if you catch yourself in it, like just be like, wow, okay, that was a lot for me to say. Let me take a step back. Can I rephrase that?
I think people are aware because, I mean, if you look, I mean, it's not like it's something brand new, but if you just look at like the divisiveness that's going on and the way people communicate with each other on social media, people have been in that heightened state of alert for a long time. And it's the ones that aren't, you could tell they've kind of, you know, a long time, at some point during the pandemic, we're like, all right, enough's enough. I'm just gonna go on with my life, and whatever happens.
It's definitely a heightened state of anxiousness, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Just to, you know, I created a Twitter account probably about 6 or 9 months ago, and still have not completely, figured it out as to how to use it. But you know, the junk that comes across the thing is just incredible. Yeah. You know, it really is. And so you have to take a deep breath and go, hey, I'm not going to let that, even register with me. Not let it bother, but it's just
And we're adults. Our brains are quote unquote fully developed, as scary as that is, right? So when we talk about teens and teenagers and young kids going through this pandemic,
yeah sure.
I can't begin to tell you how many kids or parents have messaged me because their kid is, being put on medication, or they're, especially
weight gain.
Yeah. In divorce families, one parent wants the medication, the other parent doesn't. And, it's like, whoa. Why are we medicating kids mental health wise when their brain's not even fully developed yet? And we're in this heightened state. And so it's like, I think people just need to step back and go back to foundations. Are we eating okay? 80% of the time, are you eating good food? You know, are we getting outside and getting sunshine? Is our vitamin D up?
No.
No.
Are you sleeping well? No.
Right. And
are you exercising? No.
It's that domino effect. Yeah. You know, I mean, the first two major things that I'll say three major things I help people with: lower their level of anxiousness, help them sleep better, and they start pooping every day. Those three things are very, very important.
Sure.
That's Dr. Beatty. Dr. Beatty, I keep mentioning his name because I love the guy, but he's got a little poster on his wall in his office. It says, "From your mouth to your butt, how healthy is your gut?"
Yeah, totally.
I love it.
Totally.
Yeah, it's kind of off topic, just barely, but I was sitting in Cincinnati Bengals stadium. Now this has probably been 4 years ago, but the gentleman that sat down on my right was older than I am by quite a bit, and I said, "Hi, I'm John," and we started talking. I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm a psychiatrist," and he said, "I work only with the elderly," and so I said, "Wow, that's really interesting. Tell me about that." So we had this big long conversation, and I said, "Do you think today that we as individuals are a higher level of stress and all of these different things as opposed to when you started your profession?" And he said, "Oh, absolutely." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You know, John," he said, "I think it's the source of our foods doesn't have the same nutrients that it used to. We get too many packaged foods." He said, "Today you frequently have two earner homes where mom and dad are both working. We're on the run, so it's easy to want to eat a prepackaged food, and then we're so busy, trying to earn a living for our family that we're not finding the right time to exercise." Back in 1920 or the 1900s, we might have been more apt to work out, outside on the farm, whatever we were doing. So we're more naturally forced to get exercise. Where that today we're sitting in the office, we're not getting sunlight and all these different things, right? Yeah. And so it was interesting to hear him say it from that perspective, which I think is a lot of what you've just said today. Mm-hmm. But he said it in a different manner that really makes sense when you think it through. So it's interesting.
Do you work in conjunction with other healthcare professionals? Like, do you have someone like an MD that you do work with if need be, or a nutritionist, or maybe someone is interested in like hormone treatment? Do you kind of refer out, do blood work, or how do you manage that?
Yeah. So, with blood work, honestly, anyone can order their own blood work online. So I do have clients that do that. I actually have a doctor down south that I've been working with. So anyone listening locally in Bakersfield, I am looking for a medical professional here in town that is open to the things that I do. And
I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Beatty.
I do know Dr. Beatty.
Do you?
I actually,
okay.
I've given him some of my supplements and things like that. So he knows of me. So, but yeah, I've referred clients to Dr. Beatty. I've referred clients for hormones to another doctor in town. So I do have, a handful of people that I do work with in town. But I would love to expand that.
Your network, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think any one practitioner, they don't have it all. And so I do work with two, there's practitioners in town that do these things called body code therapy. We have a hypnotherapist that works at Happy Whole You. She didn't before, but now she came in to work with us, which was great. So we refer in-house now. So yeah, there's other practitioners that are local and not local that I work with. Dr. Amen, the Amen clinics, do a lot with them, and they refer people to me up here, and love his work. So if anyone's familiar with Dr. Amen, he's actually the only psychiatrist that I know of that actually scans the brain. It's called a SPECT imaging scan, and it measures the blood flow to the different hemispheres and the different areas of the brain. And from that blood flow and measuring that, you can actually see a lot and make sense of why someone might be acting the way that they're acting. And of course, this is not covered by insurance, which doesn't make sense because SPECT imaging, I think, has been around since in the 70s or before that and it was used in our military, I believe. But nevertheless, so I have a 10-year-old client that just went and had a SPECT imaging scan. And so I sent to the psychiatrist my findings with this 10-year-old, and then he will see her, the psychiatrist, next week, and she'll go over the brain image scans with him. And then I'll also see those as well. So that's really cool, but not everyone can, spend that,
right?
That $5,000 or whatever it is. But
you work with osteopaths at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope. But I'm open to all.
Tell us about your nutraceuticals.
Yeah, so I developed 3 brain nutraceuticals. So there are 3 supplements, and one is called Happy You, which ultimately has a lot of the precursors to help with serotonin production, which is a mood stabilizing hormone. A lot of people don't realize that serotonin, you actually need vitamin B6 and the amino acid tryptophan to even begin to think about making serotonin. So those are a couple ingredients in my Happy You. Then we have Bright You, which is ultimately my anti-aging, anti-inflammatory for the brain. It has the curcumin, the resveratrol, all the good things. And then Calm You is really to help calm that limbic system, to calm that amygdala down, and to kind of take that layer of yuck off your brain so you can think clearly, focus, and not feel so anxious. And ultimately, I created these because I had like 20 to 30 different bottles of product on my countertop.
See my drawer.
I know, right? It's like, and I'll have clients that come to me.
Mine.
They'll come to me, and when I scan them, and we do like amino acid profile, we'll look at the vitamins and coenzymes and just see where they're at. So we actually see like, what does your body need, and then I do muscle response testing and energetic testing to see like, do you need this? Like some clients, like supplements don't work for them. They can't take them. They don't make them feel great. Like your supplement, after you take your supplements, they should never make you feel tired afterwards, right? And same with food. After you eat food, you should never feel tired afterwards. So starting to listen to your body energetically when you ingest and have things. It's not a one size fits all, but so I created them. Bright You was the first one I formulated because I was taking every single like anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, the curcumin, the resveratrol, the green tea, the ginkgo, like all that.
PQQ.
So I put it all in one, and it just like saves me a bunch of money because it's like one product and it's less plastic waste and it's just better.
When you meet with a patient or client initially, do you have them bring in a list of the supplements that they're currently taking?
Yeah. So I always invite my clients to bring any recent blood work. We can look over that together. And a lot of times what we do is we just compare it to the frequency scan to see their CBC compared to the chemistry compared to the frequency. I ask them to bring any supplements or at least take a picture. And I always tell them, don't take a picture of the front of the bottle. Take a picture of the back. I need to see the true ingredients because anyone can put whatever they want on the front of the bottle.
Do you test, I'm sure you do, but do you have this tested by a third party for the integrity of the ingredients?
Absolutely. So all of my products are sourced around the world, and they're actually bottled in Georgia. We have small batch testing. Every time we get raw materials in, there's small batch test. And now, even with the FDA, every single formulation gets retested before it gets shipped out. So not only are we testing the individual raw, authentic single agents, once they get formulated together, they are then tested again before they are shipped out. So, yeah.
Because I know a lot of these supplement companies, they're bottled in the same places, and so some have a better reputation than others. And I know like their vats that they use to mix them in, they don't clean them very well, so you have trace elements of other things that you're not intending to be taking, but they're there. And I've actually listened to Rogan's podcast about that, about some of the athletes who test positive for banned substances, right? And they say, well, no, I was just taking this, and and was it really because they were taking the banned substance, or was there just trace elements of it from maybe unclean supplements that they were taking? So so the facility, all my ingredients and everything is made, it's FDA approved facility, so it has like the highest standard of testing. Not that FDA has the highest standard, but some people want to hear that. But so. Were you taking a ton of zinc during the whole pandemic?
I did.
That's the only supplement I've ever taken that I finally pinpointed as to why I wasn't feeling well after I took it.
Oh, you can't take zinc. Yeah, and there's different forms of zinc.
Yeah.
So it'll make you feel nauseous.
Yes.
You'll feel like you want to throw up, and it's horrible. Like you should never take zinc on its own. You need to take it with food, and there's different forms of zinc.
I was taking a ton of that, quercetin and vitamin D and C.
Oh, you probably felt bad.
I couldn't figure out why though, because like I take a ton of supplements, and I know, but then I limited it down to just cut out the zinc for a week or something. I was like, okay, that was it.
Yeah, I've got one of those guts that that I can tolerate anything. So for me, it was no big deal. Yeah. It really wasn't. I don't know if it was psychological, but I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing to kind of fight through that whole phase. So
the placebo effect works 30% of the time.
Sure.
So what does it matter if it's placebo or not? It's the same with the drugs that are on the market, right? So
absolutely.
If it
works, it works for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right?
Yeah. Totally.
So what have we not asked you that we were supposed to ask you?
Oh man, I don't know. I think we covered a lot today.
More than you wanted to. You do have a podcast as well.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah, the Happy Whole You podcast. I talk about a variety of things, have different guests on, and so it's just another outlet where I can speak my mind.
Is it episodes whenever you feel like it? Does it come out once a week?
Yeah, I don't put that pressure on myself. Usually I have about 4 episodes a month.
Okay.
Is what I try to do, and my editor tries to hold me accountable to that. But I started the podcast because I didn't want to keep explaining the different forms of zinc to clients. So I would just send them a message and be like, hey, listen to this podcast, or about magnesium, or about hypnotherapy. So now I use the podcast as a tool to educate my clients. So I like to just talk about subjects that'll help me from saying the same thing over and over and over again.
What do you say to somebody who maybe doesn't have a ton of weight to lose, generally feels okay, but is kind of curious as to what you do? Is that something that is recommended, or is it you want to focus on people who, quote unquote, badly need the help?
Oh no. I mean, I have clients that are like, they just want to remain high performance in terms of like their mental health. They run multi-million-dollar companies, and they're like, I need to be sharp. And so they're coming in and they're doing their therapies like, once or twice a month. But I highly recommend that everybody, if you can swing it, spend 2 hours, come in, do the full body AO scan. It's really cool. I combine a whole host of different modalities to evaluate people. And, I have my own unique way with people and what I do. And it's just, I get a lot of joy out of it. So that's me selfishly, but I do feel
about you or us.
I know, but I really do feel though, my clients, it just brings me so much joy when they're like, oh my gosh, I already feel better. I had a client come in it was yesterday, I think. Yeah. Yesterday, came in to buy a bottle of the Happy You. She's off all of her medication. And 6 months ago, she was depressed and didn't want to get off the couch, right? Like that's,
it's progress.
Yeah, it's progress. It's an extreme case, but it's like, selfishly, I love being a part of those, those experiences and those victories.
Absolutely.
But I get people all the time that just want to optimize, athletes, business professionals that just want to just stay sharp, right? You don't want to have dementia and Alzheimer's and all that stuff.
No. The struggle is, who are you comparing yourself to, right? And so, if we're sitting here, Kyle's a high performer, successful attorney, and but yet he wants to be better. Yeah. But if he looks at it, against the guy that's under the bridge that's struggling with something else, and right. He's as high as it gets.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I think it's human nature to always want more and always strive for more.
That's your human nature, right? Like, honestly, no, I agree with you. But I think when we get in true alignment with our true authentic self, it doesn't feel like such a race. Like we can enjoy the process more, right? When you're not, like there's no carrot to chase. That's all in your head. Like you've created that on your own.
For sure. Yeah, I've created mine for sure.
Yeah. But it is a motivator though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there is.
It has a purpose, I think.
It does. But I think, so I guess this is what I'm trying to say. So I work with people and then they're like, well, I need to lose 20 pounds. And then it's like, okay, why do you need to lose 20 pounds? And some of them will just be like, well, look at me. And it's like, no, why do you feel you need to lose 20 pounds? And why is it 20? Why isn't it 17.6 pounds? The thing about it is a lot of times the goals that we set for ourselves were never our goals that we set for ourselves. It was somebody else's goal or somebody else's expectation put on us.
Yeah.
So it's like if we
that's mine.
Yeah. So if we get quiet enough and be like, what is it that I really want? Well, I don't want to have to commit to putting out a podcast every single week. I don't want to commit to, like certain things. And so I just do them how I feel I need to do them. But then if I talk to my business coach, she's like, well, you need to have dialed in. And then I have to remind myself, because then I'll start feeling like, oh gosh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then I'm like, no, I can choose to do whatever I want. Like these can be some goals, but that's not what I truly want. Right. So I don't know. So I think it's there's that carrot we create, but I think when we're in alignment, it just feels so good and yummy to just keep doing the things that we're doing, you know.
We talked about a little bit about this. I'm gonna go into a little bit if you don't mind. And I know you're not in that field, but it's something sounds like you might be interested in the future to get into is psychedelics and using that for treatment and or either microdosing or even macrodosing, psilocybin, MDMA, stuff that's getting a lot of attention now, as opposed to traditional pharmaceutical medicines to treat things like depression, anxiety, sleep disorder, PTSD, so on and so forth. Yeah. Is that something that you are interested in kind of adding to your field of expertise or knowledge base, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely knowledge base. I love it. The thing about mushrooms is they have so many healing benefits from just the physical mushroom that you're eating, like the
portobello
glucogens.
I thought you were looking for the name of the mushroom.
No, like the glucogens, like you have, like there's just, I'm thinking like lion's mane, the ones that aren't psychedelic, but then the ones that are psychedelic also, they have those properties to them. And so I think that it is a cool field. And I love how, if like how trees talk to each other under the earth all the time, and they're like all connected, and like to be a part of that chain is kind of cool when you like have the mushroom or when you're eating even just fruits and vegetables. But the psychedelics, yes. And I actually did my own trip a few months back. I got what you call a sitter, right? It's somebody to like
a guide.
Yeah. Well, they sit with you when you like eat a bunch of mushrooms.
Did you do micro or macro?
So I did micro, but then towards the end, she's like, would you just like do it? Like, just do it.
Give into it.
So I was at the beach. It was cool. And then did a little microdosing during the day, and then went back to the room and really just did it. And I was so joyful. I was just like laughing and just like giggly and just like a kid again, right? Like you just realize like all this crazy stuff around us, like, come on, like we make it into all these things, and it doesn't need to be that way. So it was just nice to just kind of let go and do that. And then I've tried to do like microdosing, here and there, and just go home at night and just eat a few mushrooms and just see what happens. But normally, like if I do it, I'll eat them and then I'll go to bed, and then I'll have like some cool dreams and stuff like that. I really connect a lot in my dreams, and when I sleep, that's like a whole nother thing. But I do have like something crazy stuff that happens when I sleep, even when I don't take mushrooms, I should say. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
It's cool how that's being talked about now a lot openly.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I don't think you could have had this conversation without being kind of like, someone looking down their nose at you a little bit. But there's a lot of high profile people that I know in town and outside of town who are very successful professionals, very successful careers, parents, families who are microdosing and going into that to try to experiment with that a little bit. And so I find it fascinating. Yeah, I would love to get to do the microdosing or MDMA. That's a little harder to get, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm smart enough not to want to buy anything off the streets, and I have no idea what it's cut with. But I hope we get to a point in the near future where you can work with a professional like yourself or someone in that field to actually go to a place and in a safe setting and something that's been tested and know exactly what you're going to ingest.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So, anyone, business ideas out there, young entrepreneurs?
Yeah.
Set it up. I'll be your first client.
Look at all the businesses that popped up with cannabis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just need some freedom, I guess.
Well, cannabis is interesting because that's still a Schedule I drug, even though it's legal in, 28 states now, 30, something like that. So there's still the research is not there that we would like to have because it's still banned under.
It's amazing to me how many drugs are on the market that are legal in terms of pharmaceuticals, but then we're going to like turn our nose up at marijuana, and we're going to turn our nose up at mushrooms. But again, if you actually research the history of the United States and how holistic health has been ultimately killed and all of that, it'll start making sense. Like there's no reason why, there's a whole nother topic, but like people that sell weed or smoked weed should be in jail and all that stuff.
And how many people, especially in the lower income and minority communities, were, just for doing that, decades of life in prison. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can go buy OxyContin or drink a fifth of Jack Daniels, and that's legal. Right?
I could go to a doctor right now. I could probably go and I was going to say the phone book. Does that age me? Not the phone book. I could go online and I could probably find a doctor And I could go in and I could tell them I have all this pain in my body and I just don't feel good and da-da-da. I would guess that I would probably walk out of there with some type of narcotic or some type of something.
Easy.
How is that legal? right? Like, it's just kind of silly. But yeah, and for me and what I do, you know, in the world of, you know, the healing arts or whatever you want to call it, I have to be very careful about, you know, I don't treat any diagnosed disease. I do not do anything like that. And I have to be very mindful of how I word things. I can help you with the symptoms of depression, anxiety, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But yeah, so it's really interesting how there are certain words that are allocated to the medical community, such as pain. That's a medical term, is pain, anxiety, depression, PTSD, acid reflux. You know, it's just, it's
GERD.
Yeah, it's like, really? Like, wow. I mean, it's interesting. It's just very interesting. And I think people are starting to ask questions around that more now, which I totally appreciate.
And I think that's a important distinction you made. And that's something that we should probably say, you know, we're not giving medical advice here, right? That's not what you're doing here. And that's not what I'm pretending to do as an attorney or John as a CPA. Yeah. This is meant to have a, you know, open discussion about what it is that your business is. And so I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to kind of get that out there. Yeah. And I think for you, someone's not going to come to you and say, hey, I have diabetes, treat me, right? That's not the approach you're taking.
They'll come to me and say, I have diabetes. I need to know what I can do because, you know, I've lost my foot.
Right.
And my doctor just keeps giving me medicine and this has happened. So what can I do? And so that's where I say, let's go to a foundation. Mm-hmm. Let's go to your foundations. Let's build you up from there.
So you will take patients or clients who come to you and say, hey, I want to get off my cholesterol med, my blood pressure med, my diabetes medication, metformin, whatever it is. I want to get off those. Can you help me?
Yeah. So what I'll tell them is we're going to work on your foundations. You're going to work with your doctor and your pharmacist, which most people ignore the pharmacist. You have to work with your pharmacist to see how we can get you off your medications. And so when you start getting your blood work back and it's starting to look better and your symptoms are going down and things like that, when you're communicating with your doctor will have a game plan for how you get off medications. I have had experiences when people are on, you know, mind altering drugs and their doctor doesn't know how to get them off all of them. And, you know, I don't say, oh, I'm going to help you get off of them. I'm going to help you help yourself communicate with your doctor how you're feeling. And we're going to start to see some biomarkers start to shift and you're going to work with your doctor on that. So legally, nope, I don't take people off medication. I don't put people on medication, but I will help them on their journey, communicate with their doctor better and express how they're feeling and all that.
Love it.
It's perfect. Anna Marie, we always ask our guests a couple of different hard questions kind of at the end of our podcast, and I know you've got plenty of content for this one. So what's a bit of news that no one knows about you and would be surprised to hear?
Maybe the mushroom trip a few months ago.
The mushroom trip.
Everybody knows now.
Oh my gosh. I'm an entrepreneur, and I don't usually like to say that out loud because I just think that word's kind of interesting, but I'm in real estate. I own multiple businesses. This is what I do. This is my jam. This is what I love. But I've been investing since I was in my early 20s. And so a lot of people don't know that I have that business mindset of financials and things like that. So I don't know, in real estate. That's
awesome. Good for you. No, it's a great thing. I think it's very obvious that you're an entrepreneur, by the way, just because of all of the things that you've done. And I would have never picked up that with regards to the real estate and all those other things, but definitely with regards to this. When you're creating your own product and writing your own book and doing what you're doing, there's no doubt about it. You're an entrepreneur. What was one of the most significant life-changing events of your life? You know, what thing happened to you that was life-changing?
I'd have to say two. One was when I was in the psychiatrist's office and I was sitting there and I felt the walls were coming in on me, and I waited like 30, 40 minutes for my appointment, which was pissing me off anyways. I'm like, doesn't this guy know you have like crazy people waiting in the waiting room and you're making them wait forever? Like, this is like, you will never come to my wellness center and you would wait for 40 minutes for your scheduled appointment. Like, that gets me angry. Any doctor's office, anything. And then when I went into that session, I went in with the intention to ask him for a different medication. And during the middle of our session, he picked up his flip phone, answered it, acted like I wasn't even there, took a call, went back to asking me the questions. Do you want to kill yourself? Do you want to hurt other people? Blah, 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 blah. It was so scripted. And I just remember I was like screaming inside. And I just was like, I just stood up and I said, I don't appreciate you taking that call. Like, I'm out of here. And it was the first time I really stood up for myself in that sense with my health. And I walked out of there. He had already actually pulled out of the file. He had already written my prescriptions before he even saw me. So he handed me 3 prescriptions. I threw them in the trash. I don't recommend that for everyone, but that's what happened. This is my story. And I threw them in the trash and I just like walked outside, and I remember the sun seemed more shiny. Like everything just seemed like different. And I was like, I knew that was the time. I had that little light inside of me. I was making a change. So that was a very defining moment. And then when I had my daughter, my second child, my daughter, she changed me from so much. I just don't even know how to explain how she's changed me, but being a woman and having a daughter and just wanting to raise her with just being happy and you don't have to focus on your weight and, every little thing you put in your body. And, you just got to love yourself and be kind to yourself and be kind to others. And so she really, I don't know what it was with her, but she definitely picked me to be her mom, and she was like, I'm going to straighten this lady out. So I appreciate that from her.
That's awesome.
Sounds like the psychiatrist did you a favor as well.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Listen, you've been fantastic. I'm sure that a ton of our listeners would love to be able to spend time with you and Happy Whole You. How's somebody get a hold of you? What's the phone number?
661.
Look it up in the phone book, John.
Yeah, right.
I know, right? 661-337-0216.
Okay, and your website?
happywholeyou.com.
That's perfect.
It's all your social media handles as well, I presume.
Yeah. We're on Facebook and Instagram. I try to do TikTok, but it's just, I know I have a 13-year-old girl that's going to help.
Yeah, I have her do it for you.
Yeah, because I can't.
Yeah. Anna Marie, you've been a fantastic guest today. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing all that information with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, Dave Plivlich, President and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com, and Amanda DiGiacomo, President of Atlas Financial Solutions. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.